There is a new rom-com on Netflix with your very original title, Love Hard, but I'm pretty sure that it would be more appropriate to call it Die Actually Please Now Let Me Die!
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
No! God, please, no!
Yes, this week I'm gonna be talking about romantic comedies, and specifically I wanted to use the new Netflix rom-com Love Hard, directed by Herman Jimenez, starring Nina Dobrev and Jimmy O Yang, to actually make a full-on critique of the romantic comedy genre as it stands nowadays.
Noah gets on a single knee. He pulls out a box. Taylor smiles teeth. She thinks she will eat a wedding's cake soon.
I propose. Propose we break up.
Noah opens the box. Inside is his new girlfriend. She looks like Taylor, but one day younger.
When was the last time that we actually had a good romantic comedy? Netflix seems to be spending a lot of money into making romantic comedies aimed at teenagers. If you think about films like The Perfect Date, if you think about The Half of It, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, The Kissing Booth, the remake of the film She's All That, which is called He's All That, The Abysmal Tall Girl. But when it comes to romantic comedies aimed at adults, Netflix hasn't really made a lot of quality content, because the only one I could think of was probably Always Be My Maybe, or maybe The Big Sick, but I'm pretty sure that The Big Sick was actually not a Netflix original. And so when Love Hard came out, I was like, let's give it a chance, because I was craving for some good romantic comedy content, and surprise surprise, it's actually incredibly bad.
Do you still have your original profile photos?
I was going for like a rugged look.
You literally look like an axe murderer.
This can't be real. This was not made for a 2021 audience in mind. Are you kidding me? This is the most basic, unfunny, cliche, Hallmark level rom-com in the history of rom-coms. Surprising your Tinder date that you have never ever seen at his parents' house for Christmas time is the most psycho idea ever. And the fact that this film keeps going after she realizes that she's been catfished is even more insane. And after that, you can probably guess that the film is plagued by an incredible amount of cliches, even though it tries to create a diverse couple dynamic when it comes to the main characters. At the end of the day, they are as lame and shallow as you can possibly imagine. There was nothing interesting about this, and it really felt like it was literally written in the early 2000s, because it had so many weird jokes about how Baby It's Cold Outside is an incredibly creepy song, which is something that, for example, was addressed in the film Elf. This film is called Love Hard because the people behind it actually put together two films, Love Actually and Die Hard. Love Hard. This is how they came up with the title of this film, and that's because one of the main characters thinks that Die Hard is like a perfect Christmas movie, and that is basically it. That is the whole reason why they built this entire film around that title. Incredibly stupid. Plus, Love Actually is a film that has aged very poorly. There is a lot of toxic relationships in that film.
Oh, fuck, wank, bugger, shitting, ass, head and hole.
So this led me through an interesting journey of trying to figure out what happened, but especially what made the good romantic comedies from the late 90s, early 2000s, which has been considered by many people as the golden age of romantic comedies.
My boyfriend thinks I'm fat. And I can't eat in front of him. I can't eat in front of you. I have to go to the bathroom.
I don't think you're fat.
I went back and I looked through a couple of romantic comedies. I didn't choose specifically the very cult romantic comedies because it would have been way too easy. I wanted to choose things that wouldn't be necessarily the best examples, just because I think the romantic comedy genre is a genre that is incredibly flawed. There are a lot of toxic things that are considered to be established tropes. Things like the best gay friend, things like the best black friend, portraying women as objects and prizes to be won by another person, or just because a couple of lads wanted to bet each other into turning someone into a princess or turning someone into a fuckable or dateable person. So there are a lot of course, toxic things within the romantic comedy genre. Probably, if you look at my collection, the romantic comedy genre is my second biggest and most represented genre after horror. So I am a huge fan, and that's also why I get very nitpicky when it comes to rom-coms, because I want them to be good, I want them to be well written, and I don't want the feeling of swallowing 1,000 liters of sparkly unicorn capitalistic bullshit down my throat 24/7. So the rom-coms I actually give a look at are Never Been Kissed, She's All That, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, 2 Weeks Notice, Shall We Dance, which is technically not a rom-com, but there are a couple of rom-com tropes within it, 50 First Dates, Monster-in-Law, Bewitched, Music and Lyrics, and the indie gem Paper Heart. So this goes from 1999 to 2009, so perfectly exactly 10 years. Of course, I've chosen a lot of films with Hugh Grant. I don't know why, I was just feeling the Hugh Grant mood.
What about you? Still shagging anything that moves?
As a matter of fact, no shagging whatsoever. I'm in shag therapy.
I actually think that we can go back and try to get a couple of lessons from each and every one of this film to get to the final conclusion, which is, why is the romantic comedy genre dead, and why are people struggling so much to create a well-constructed, funny and charming romantic comedy in the 2020s. If you take the film Never Been Kissed Before, for example, there are so many incredible problematic things about it. There is this idea that a lot of people tend to get infantilized, especially women, but sometimes men as well, and it's the idea of trying to portray them as never aging. Kind of tries to portray life as this straight line. If you're a loser in high school, you will be a loser your whole life. If you were a very self-conscious, naive person in high school, you will be exactly the same 20 or 30 years later. And I kind of hate that, because it kind of shows life as something that doesn't change. It shows personalities, it shows dynamics as something that remained the same across all the different years. And of course, it's not true. Another thing that of course is really toxic when it comes to this film, it's the fact that it actually has a character that is 100% a pedophile.
I'm 25 years old. I'm an undercover reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times, and I have been beating my brains out trying to impress you people.
Because Drew Barrymore falls in love with one of her teachers, even though she is overage, she's pretending not to be, and the guy still falls for her, and there are a lot of really cringy scenes. And the third act is incredibly toxic, almost excusing the guy because he was being misled and he was being lied to by Drew Barrymore's character about her age. Then if you look at other films like Shall We Dance, for example, it is already a different kind of rom-com because it presents, of course, a person that has been married to someone else for a really long time and whose relationship has become kind of stale because of the whole family life and because of the whole going to work, going back home, going back to sleep, and keep repeating over and over this kind of cycle. And this film portrays this man, Richard Gere, who falls in love with this dancer character played by Jennifer Lopez, and that's why he starts taking dancing lessons. In the film, it's kind of ambiguous if he eventually falls in love with dancing or if he's actually doing that for the entire time just to get laid, just to get closer to Jennifer Lopez's character. It is very ambiguous until the very end. There are a couple of really cute and funny scenes. Most of the times it feels very predatorial, especially because this stars one of the most cringy romantic comedy cliches that we have here in the bunch, which is the age difference in between the two different partners. Here we've got a very old Richard Gere with a very young Jennifer Lopez, and it's incredibly creepy, and it is supposed to be read as hot, as an adventure, as something that everyone is inspired to.
Would you stop thinking about what everyone wants? Stop thinking about what I want, what he wants, what your parents want. What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
But anyways, this entire film is built on lies, and that's a problem with rom-coms as well. Here we're presented also with the kind of structure that we always have in rom-coms that present this lie, meaning that the lie is going to be discovered just before the third act, and then the main character will have to go through some kind of redemption arc, or even just apologize in like a 5-minute scene, only for the other person to forgive them and to everything to go back to the status quo, right? A film that is really ambiguous is Adam Sandler's 51st Dates. Stars Drew Barrymore as a person who has gone through an accident and she loses all of her memories every time she goes to sleep and every time that she goes to bed. So she starts repeating the same day over and over, day after day. And she meets one day this guy, Adam Sandler, who starts in a very ambiguous way. It feels like he's almost putting himself to a challenge of trying to see how many different ploys and weird techniques he can use on this woman until she sleeps with him. That is basically what the first act approximately of this film looks like, and then it kind of changes a little bit. Kind of like one of those weird tropes when it comes to the rom-coms, where there is this idea of being meant for each other and this idea of people sacrificing something in their life for you, and Adam Sandler has to actually try to find a way to make her understand every single day how they fell in love with each other. If it was dealt better, it could have been an instant classic. It is of course an Adam Sandler film, so it ends up being mostly ridiculous and kind of funny, but it has its cute moments. Of course, if Adam Sandler was a disgusting person, this could be a horror film, because this could be about how to manipulate someone into you being with them.
Your hole! That's your hole! Are you too good for your hole? Answer me! An accident! With my dick! Yeah! And blood's gonna come out of your head! There's nothing you can do about it! Cause I'm a madman! You're gonna die, clown! Why would you do this to me? You sick bastard!
Adam Sandler's character could make a tape, filling it with lies. He could have literally kidnapped Drew Barrymore's character and put her on a fucking boat and been like, oh, actually we are married and we are very in love with each other, even though maybe it was not true, right? But rom-coms, as you can see, they are based on weird ideas because people have no idea how to actually write a genuine looking rom-com film.
Take her for example. Short, decent rack, kind of a Chelsea Clinton thing going on. But given the right look, the right boyfriend, bam, in 6 weeks, she's the one being crowned prom queen.
She's All That, of course, represents that kind of romantic comedy trope where the men are just betting against each other and they're trying to manipulate women into being with them. Women are perceived as prizes. Also, like in the film 10 Things I Hate About You. It ends up being quite cute, but at the very end of the day, if you really think about it, the redemption of the main characters really comes way too fast, especially when you've been building a lie for so long, right? There is a lot of nostalgia when it comes to this film. Same thing with 10 Things I Hate About You. And at the end of the day, I think that it is less toxic than other films. So the film 2 Weeks Notice, it's starring once again Hugh Grant, who is playing a very misogynistic version of his persona. In some films, he tends to play it a bit less and be more cute and naive. Basically, relationships between men and women done in a power dynamic when one is the boss of the other, it becomes a complete mess and it could be really, really dangerous. And it shouldn't be glorified, of course. She literally becomes his mom. It's insane. It's insane that they built a romantic comedy around the idea that he becomes so incredibly stupid that he can't do anything without her help. And it kind of perpetuates that idea of women not only working 9 to 5 for men, but also to keep working for them and taking care of them and taking all of those responsibilities for themselves because they simply cannot handle it. I don't know, it is not very clear what the message of the film is. You're gonna have to take care of this man like a baby because he cannot do anything on his own.
You can talk!
Goo goo gaga.
So now that we've gone through a fair share of really toxic romantic comedies, in the films that I watched, there were a couple of them that really signaled to me why I actually loved romantic comedies. The first one I'm going to talk about, of course, is my big fat Greek wedding.
Because we're always together, just eating, eating, eating. The only other people we know are Greeks. Because Greeks marry Greeks. To breed more Greeks. To be loud, breeding Greek eaters.
Which is not only a romantic comedy, it is a movie about family, it is a movie about roots, it is a movie about cultural differences and living in America and embodying those kind of cultural differences when you're about to marry someone who has nothing to do with them. I completely fell in love with the movie because it was not about looks, it was not necessarily about giving someone a makeover, it was not necessarily about two people stumbling and lying to each other until they fell in love. It was actually about a very genuine and very simple love story about these two people and how it actually evolved while he got to meet the entire family and how they responded to him and how they tried to embrace him, but at the same time there were a lot of conflicting issues. It really gives the main character a purpose, which is to become financially independent and become her own person. So it's not only a romantic comedy, this is actually a film about her becoming a normal, independent human being, which is going to allow her to exist outside of her family as well.
My dad is so stubborn. What he says goes. You know, the man is the head of the house.
Let me tell you something, Tula. The man is the head, but the woman is the neck. And she can turn the head any way she wants.
This is exactly what I was going to when it comes to this video. It's that a good romantic comedy is not only a romantic comedy. A good romantic comedy is actually presenting a love story while also telling a bigger story about bigger messages, putting in front of us a lot of three-dimensional characters who are going through different things while also being in love. Other examples in this would be Monster-in-Law. The couple in the center of this film is not actually the center of this film. The center of this film is this woman who has recently been fired, who doesn't really have a husband anymore. She has never taken the time to actually build a life outside her work, and she's grasping at everything around her, especially her son, attempting to retain some kind of a control over her life because she cannot control anything and she has nothing to do. And even though it is based on a kind of a weird toxic idea of ownership over one man, whether it is from the girlfriend perspective or the mother perspective, I still think that there are bits and pieces of an interesting film forming within the film Monster-in-Law, which go way beyond the just let's put together these two people who are gonna meet each other, kiss each other,
and then eventually one is gonna lie to the other one, and then the other one is gonna be upset, and then she's gonna be forgiven, and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? The usual.
And then we go into the film Music and Lyrics, which is starring Drew Barrymore and Hugh Grant at the very peak of their rom-com career. Why do I love this film? Because this is not just a romantic comedy, this is so many different things at the same time. It is a film about growing up, it is a film about embracing also the inner talent that you have, and even though other people have maybe undermined it for a very long time, it's about accepting your artistic gift. It's about also learning to work with someone who maybe doesn't share all your life values. At the end of the day, it is also about creation. It is also about the power that you put into art. The movie actually never goes into the rom-com tropes that we expect from it. It keeps going into its own direction and into the idea that this film is about these two people coming together to write a song. You don't really have to call it a romantic comedy. I think it's really beautiful also when romantic comedies, even though they're structured as romantic comedies and they are starring two really beautiful people who are clearly attracted to each other and who have a lot of chemistry, at the end of the day, maybe they don't go into traditional relationships and maybe it is just a platonic friendship, and at the end of the day, it's just about them being together without actually figuring out how or in which way specifically. And I really love that. The problem with the romantic comedies nowadays is that we are kind of in a relationship anarchy these days, meaning that people don't necessarily want monogamy straight away, or they don't want monogamy with this person, or they might want it with this other person but not with them, or they might want to have relationships with different people at the same time, so which we would call polyamory. Nowadays we have so many different options and people also don't put love as a priority in their life anymore, because I feel like we're starting to understand how we can really take advantage of friendship, of family, of other relationship with objects, plants, with animals as well, to get the amount of love that we need to actually keep living a happy life. And I feel like that's one of the main reasons why the romantic comedy genre is slowly dying, but it could also be transforming, because if we actually accept the fact that love is not really the cliched Shakespeare kind of passionate and tragic and full of lie love that we've been almost accustomed to receive through pop culture, then maybe the romantic comedy genre doesn't have to die. And this is why I will talk about the last film of this list, which is Paper Heart, which is a weird fake documentary about this character who goes around the United States asking married couples what it means for them to be in love and what love looks like. And eventually, through this documentary, she falls in love with someone else and they start shooting this documentary together. But at the end of the day, this is not really about falling in love with that specific character who was played by Michael Cera. These days, we don't have to try to create more complicated scripts where there are plot machinations. Have you actually ever met someone by just lying to them, or by someone else lying for you, or by creating this weird, incredibly complex spectacle so that they will be attracted to you or that you will get their attention? No, most of the times it is very mundane. And it doesn't mean that rom-coms have to get used to portraying mundane things when it comes to portraying love. It's just that it needs to get used to the everyday world that we're living in today, where there are so many different ways of meeting people. And actually there are a lot of films that have used dating apps as their main plot machination to force two people to meet. But at the end of the day, people don't understand that even people are using these dating apps and services, it doesn't mean that they're obsessed with love. Dating services and dating apps have become something that we consume on an everyday basis, like it was a Candy Crush game. It is something that has become very mundane. And the problem with trying to take that aspect of contemporary life and turning it into a film is that people actually misinterpret that as this is the only way that people meet these days. If you're not on the dating app, you will never find love, you will die alone.
Monica just broke my seashell lamp.
Neat. I'm gonna die alone.
And they take all that amount of tragedy and passion and sadness and they turn it into a film, and it starts becoming once again a film about lying, a film about superficiality and the kind of things that we expect from it. If you keep portraying love as a very conservative thing, as something that is always represented in the same way since the very beginning of time, then you will not make any cult new romantic comedies, because love is not like that anymore. And it's not that I'm an expert on love or anything, but I'm pretty sure that I'm starting to become an expert on romantic comedies, especially when it comes to all the different genre conventions. Let me know what you think about Love Hard. Let me know what you think about romantic comedies in general, if you still watch them, because honestly, I haven't met a single person in a really long time who tells me that they love romantic comedies. Anyways, I really hope that you liked this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it always helps. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Taylor smacks Noah and he flies to Mars, the terrible man planet. Tyler jumps into man Taylor's arms. They Wednesday.
I pronounce you Taylor and also Taylor. You may kiss the tailor,